Hello and welcome to What's the Deal tutorials. It's me, Dill, and we're here with Stellaris to teach you all about planets. We're going to talk about what types of planets there are, what are their main uses, we can understand what they have to offer, and also how to manage them. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about the types of planets that there are. We can think of them in three categories: uninhabitable, where we can never colonize them no matter what; selectively habitable, which means that we can colonize them if we have the right preference for our species. You see here, humans have continental preferences, so they could get on continental planets very easily. There's also universally habitable planets. These can be habitated by anyone with any preference in the galaxy. So let's go ahead and look at some types of uninhabitable planets. Here in this sector we can see this gas giant is uninhabitable, this barren world, this frozen world, this molten world. You notice none of them have colonize option. None of them have a little planet around them, unlike we're going to see here in Sirius. It tells us there is a habitable planet. It even tells us that it's got good habitation. And if we come in here, we see uninhabitable planets all around. While these planets can be used for resources or trade value, they can't be used for much of anything else. Some of them can be terraformed, but you shouldn't count on it. So, as you can see, we're back at the character creation, so we can talk about the types of selectively habitable planets. Here we see that Earth is selected as a continental world, and it's under the category of wet. There are other types of planets under wet: ocean world and tropical world. There are also dry worlds, arid worlds, desert worlds, and savannas. There's cold worlds or frozen worlds, such as the alpine world, the Arctic world, and the tundra world. So these are 9 of the selectively habitable planets that they have a preference for what type of species will be living on them. Your preference is whichever one that you choose. And then in the same category of, say, wet, you have a good bonus to get habitability on that planet with your race. But for things, say, like dry and frozen in this case, they would not give us good bonuses. They would give us about 20%, whereas oceans and tropicals would be 60, and continental worlds would be 80%. The Tomb World. This is a world that's been baptized by nuclear fire. It's gone. This is somewhat special, post-apocalyptic origin, because while some species may exist with the preference of Tomb World, this gives you a Tomb World and the ability to live on the Tomb World, but still allows you to choose a normal origin planet here that your species would prefer to live on. So that's something of note with this type of world. Another type of world which one can argue is selectively habitable is the machine world. Now, we can't take these on humans, these are only for machines, but these are worlds that have been fully converted into things that are more suitable for a machine intelligence to overlook. But that means biologicals would probably die from gases and hard to access areas. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the universally habitable planets. These are the ones that any species can live on, no matter what. But we'd like to begin with Gaia worlds. Gaia worlds are perfect worlds. You can think of them as catering to life in every single way, perhaps by natural design or perhaps by artificial design. These planets are like it, and they're a paradise. Another type of universally habitable planet is the Relic World. The Relic World is a destroyed Ecumenopolis. That is a city that spans the entire planet. For these planets, they used to be the seat of great empires, but then they fell into decay and are gone. But the systems are still there to support any kind of life that should find its way onto the surface. On the note of Ecumenopolis, they can be built by these relic worlds being upgraded, or you can get a special ascension perk in order to build these yourself in the game. The next type of universally habitable planet you can think of is a orbital habitat. So these are very, very large space stations that are the size of large moons or planets that can all sustain life. And since it's an artificial thing, it can be made to sustain whatever life you need to sustain. And so this is a very good way to expand your empire if you get stuck in an area that doesn't have many planets suitable for you. And the last type is the ring world. The ring world is a large world that has been made artificially by some kind of advanced species. And so it always gets energy from the sun, and it is very habitable because it's an artificial closed area that someone else has made. These can be built later on. They can also be found ruined in the world and you can repair them, but you have to have the special ascension perk in order to do it. So now let's talk about the main uses that one gets out of planets. And to do that, we're going to select our new colony, Alpha Centauri. The main things that you're going to use this for are the districts, the buildings, and the armies that they can create. Districts are a main thing you're going to exploit on your planet. There are 5 types of districts. One for providing housing, a little bit of amenities, and some trade value. One for providing alloys and consumer goods. Another for providing energy. Another for mining minerals. And a final for growing food. These districts are limited. As you can see, you can only have 6 agricultural districts. You can only have 3. You could only have 4, but 3 of these are odd. Now, these cannot change. The industrial districts and the city districts will scale to the planet's size. That's their maximum amount. But there's only so many resources you can exploit that are naturally occurring on the planet. So let's talk about those red lines right there under mining. There's 3 of them. And we'd like to know why there's 3. Well, there's something wrong with the planet that needs to be cleared, so we need to use Clear Blocker to get rid of it. But we can use features in order to see what's individually wrong, and also to see how much we're going to get out of it. If we remove this one, we get 2 mining districts. If we remove this one, we only get 1 mining district. And if we remove this one, we just get 2 districts. So you get a total of 4 districts. By just doing the dense jungles, we'd unlock the mineral district. But we'd still be missing 1, because 1 overall is going to be blocked by this dangerous wildlife. And so that's how we get access to all 14 of our planet's size, because the size will tell you how much districts you can use. The last thing I'd like to mention on districts is the ability to replace a district that's already existing or to demolish one. So now let's talk about buildings down here. We see how we get our first building, and that's our reassembled ship shelter. So our colony ship was turned into the planetary headquarters. You can see it upgrades to something because buildings can upgrade and give you more bonuses. Right here is a list of their bonuses and a list of the bonuses for the upgraded planetary administration, as well as its upgraded upkeep cost. So buildings are unlocked every 5 populations. You start with some initial amount. In this case, we just got 1 in addition to our starting building. And after that, every 5 will unlock another. And you build these to get buffs for your planet. So now we're at the Armies tab, and this is a very important tab when you're in war, because in order for a planet to be taken over, you have to send an invading army, and your army is going to be there to protect it, or you can train your invading army to go take someone else's. So, in order to do this, you click Recruit, and then you could pay the mineral cost for an assault army. You see we cannot build garrison armies, and this planet here does not have a garrison. But Earth does have a garrison. It scales with the population size, so over time you will get garrisons on your planet. So when you have a series of armies on your planet, you can assign or hire a general. So you would go to leaders down here and then recruit a general. Then you can assign them to lead. They're attached to one specific army unit, and then from there they will go out to the field and lead all of your armies, unless that unit is destroyed, and then it is destroyed as well. Now, during an invasion, ships will be over you, and these ships may be bombarding you, or they may carry the troops that send them down. If they are bombarding ships, like fleets that you fight with, your devastation will increase, and that will begin to damage buildings on your planet. It will begin to do damage to your population, and it will also damage your armies on your planet, making them weaker for the invading army. And that's all you'll need to know about armies for now, until you actually get into war. Though one thing of note, in order for a system to be captured, it must capture all of its planets and its starbase. So here, it would need to capture that, plus send an army to invade Alpha Centauri. So now that we understand the basics of planets, let's try to understand them in a little more depth and to know how to manage them. And to start, we'll go to Earth, where a lot of our action is. So let's begin by understanding all the information given to us in this area up here, where crime is. Crime tells us how much, crime is on a planet, and it affects the stability and comes about because of low stability. and low happiness. In order to fix this, you need to have enforcers. Now, normally this is not a big problem, it goes up with your population, but if you have the mega corporations installed, then you may have to worry about crime organizations who are going to try to pump these numbers up and get to you. One thing to note is that your crime will provide criminal jobs, which will do you no favors, and you want to make sure you don't have them available. But on the topic of jobs, let's talk about that. We have unemployment and we have available jobs. You always want to keep available jobs. These are jobs that your people can grow into. And so I would recommend having 3 or 4, but don't have too many, or you're going to have a lot of buildings sitting around that are costing you but not producing anything. When you have unemployed populations, people will get unhappy and people will turn to crime. So please make sure that you're addressing this. Above is housing. Everybody needs a house and they need to be able to live somewhere, and this is provided by districts, usually just enough for the jobs, but mostly by city districts themselves, and also special buildings such as the luxury residence. Amenities is the resource that keeps track of all the niceties and pleasure things that your planet has. If it's very high, it's a relaxing planet and they can get away from the stresses. If it's not, well, productivity and perhaps stability is going to suffer for it. Right here is our population. It tells us how many we have total, in addition to what is the racial breakdown. Right now we just have humans. If we had robots, it would say human and the type of robot that was there. If we had many aliens, it would list them all. And above here is stability. It tells us how much we have, what are our bonuses, what is our approval doing for us, and what buffs that it applies. Something to note is that amenities, while boosting your stability, will only boost it for so much. So you can't go too crazy with amenities. It'll up your happiness, which will up your stability. So as noted before, there is a size. Earth has a size of 18. And that means I can have 18 districts if I clear them all. And this is what that number means right here. This number is habitability. Since this is our main planet, it's at 100%. This one is at 90% because I am habitable for continentals, and that gives me 80, and plus I have adaptive on humans, which will give me 10% more. This puts a cap on how happy your people can be. They can only be 90% happy on a planet like this. The people on Earth can be 100% happy. So keep that in mind when you're trying to put aliens on a planet they don't belong on. So now let's talk about governors. As you can see right here, we have Carter Hutchins, and he's overlooking it. A governor leads a sector, and a sector is a white zone within your empire. You see here, this is the homeward sector, and it incorporates 4 units, 4 connecting units, or 4 nodes, out from the center. So Sol is our center. That means this would go to Alpha Centauri, to this planet, and it would end right over here. Oh no, it would end over here, because that would be 4 jumps away. And when you have sectors, you can apply governors. Governors are leaders, and they give some kind of bonus. In this case, I have bonus food. They also help stability, and as their levels go up, they become more effective. So you want to always make sure that you have some governor overlooking your planets, if possible. Any planets that are colonized that are not in a sector immediately will show up on a frontier sector. That's going to be over here in the outliner. It'll say frontier. And then you can create a sector by clicking on this little button right here. Now, both of these are already within sectors, but if you did not, you would be able to click that to create a sector, and if it was not your core sector, you could delete it with this. Let's dive in a little bit more about sectors. There's a menu over here where it tells you their sector settings, what your sector is producing, resources that you can give to your sector. If you automate them, and we'll talk about that in a later video, they will use these resources to upgrade themselves. And it also tells you what's going on, how many systems do you have, how many colonies, and how many populations. If you go ahead and left click it, it'll give you a breakdown planet by planet, so you can understand in this sector what's valuable and what's producing what. When you have many planets and a lot to defend, you may need to use this to prioritize which planets can go and which ones are critical and cannot go. So now let's go ahead and talk about corporate buildings. We are not a mega corporation, so we cannot establish a branch office. But mega corporations can establish branch offices on your planet. These provide jobs for your local population. In this case, it would provide jobs for the humans on Earth. While we would get some of that benefit, the mega corporation would also be getting benefit from having that building here. Megacorporation buildings are just like the other buildings where they scale by population, but instead of 5, it is a much larger number, and as you have more branch offices, it costs more. Now, you may have more jobs available to you than you have workers, and if this is the case, you may have some specific things, such as alloys or administrative capacity, that you would like to get out of it. To force your workers to do that, you would go to the population tab and look under jobs. Here you can tell it, say, I want bureaucrats, and then we can see that we're specializing for bureaucrats. The humans will make sure that that position is filled first and foremost, and then we can always get rid of it by clicking it again. Now this tab will allow you to prefer certain certain species. In this case, we have only the humans, so we can't prefer another species on the planet, but if you had multiple races, you could prefer one over the other at a cost. You can see here a breakdown of the information of their growth. We can see a breakdown of our population, as well as the different beliefs that our population has. And if we're assembling robots, and what type of robots there are. Also, if a population is declining, and what is their approval or their happiness here, and also tells you why they are happy. Let's go back to the main page and take a look at features. Here, not only can we see what needs to be cleared, but we can see what they offer. We can also just see what is on the planet, what interesting things are there if you would like to get more immersed in your galaxy and have a good understanding of each planet and its uniqueness. There's also decisions. These are special things which cause influence, but sometimes other resources, such as relics, which we'll talk about in a later video, and consumer goods, that apply some kind of buff or do some action, such as stopping planetary growth or initiating martial law, which will increase your stability, but it will make your planet far more ineffective. Only consider this if you have a planet whose population doesn't belong there, or if things are going really bad because of crime. Another thing that you can do is you can set a specialization for a planet. I can't do it on the core sector, but I can do it on Alpha Centauri. On the core capital planet, but we can do it on Alpha Centauri. So if we look here, we can choose colony, the bonuses it gives, urban world, mining world, agri world. We can also just say forget it and let it automatically designate based on the buildings that are there. We also have the amount of trade value that our planet is creating right here. We have an overview for what our planet is producing and what upkeep is required to keep this planet running. And we also have a list of the buffs. In this case, we have Prosperous Unification, and it lasts for 4,386 days. On this planet, Alpha Centauri, we don't have any buffs at all, but you can also have debuffs show here, so make sure to read those to understand what's going on your planet. The final thing I would like to talk about is terraforming. Now, we don't have the technology to terraform, but if you unlock it, you can change your planet into different planets types. Now, you don't get access to the great planets at the beginning. You have to unlock better and better types as you go on, but you can take an existing planet and change it to something that's more preferable to your species. You can also take some planets such as Mars, who are candidates for terraforming, and be able to convert them over. And that, my friends, concludes our lesson on planets. We've learned their types, what they have to offer, and how to manage them. If you found this insightful, please make sure to like, subscribe, or share, and stay tuned for more content. I'll see you out there.